Imagine spending like 20, 30, or even 50,000 euros to build this highly engineered, beautifully lit, custom designed storefront. You know, you stock it with your absolute best products, you fly your top sales executives out to staff it, and it just looks incredible.
Ooh, yeah, a total premium setup.
Right. And then, exactly 96 hours later, you literally tear the entire thing down, throw it into the back of a truck, and leave. I mean, in an era where we're so obsessed with the permanence of digital marketing and the efficiency of cloud-based algorithms, that just sounds completely insane. It sounds like you're throwing money into a fire.
It really does. It sounds like an absolute logistical nightmare, frankly. I mean, when you look at the sheer friction involved in moving physical materials,
Yeah.
hiring contractors, coordinating the travel, the immediate instinct for, well, any modern marketing director is to just pivot that budget into a targeted digital ad campaign.
Yeah, exactly. You can just do that from the comfort of a quiet office.
Exactly. Why go through the hassle?
But today, we are going to show you why doing exactly that, building a temporary physical room, might actually be the smartest financial decision a high-level B2B company can make. So, welcome to the deep dive.
Glad to be here.
Our mission today is to explore a highly strategic guide published by Adam Expostan, which is a major European exhibition contractor. They've basically mapped out a playbook for dominating Construtec IFEMA Madrid 2026. So for you listening, our goal is to extract the fascinating psychology and really the hidden mechanics of how modern trade shows actually work using this premier Southern European construction fair as our ultimate case study.
And we really need to set the scene here first, because the sheer scale of this environment, it really dictates the strategy. Construct runs from November 10th through the 13th, 2026. And this isn't, a small gathering in a hotel ballroom.
Right, it's massive.
It's massive. It occupies 42,000 square meters at the Feria de Madrid complex. It's basically the anchor of International Construction Week, and it brings in over 60,000 highly specialized trade visitors. It is just an absolute behemoth of an event.
Which, I mean, that brings me right back to my initial skepticism. We live on Zoom. We buy complex software through cloud portals. Why on earth are construction companies, architects, and engineering firms still packing up their wares to travel to a giant physical market square? Feels, I don't know, almost medieval.
Well, I would actually argue it's precisely because our daily lives are so overwhelmingly digital that these physical spaces have surged in value. I mean, the guide from Adam Exostan, they include client tracking data that completely flips the script on efficiency.
Oh, really? How so?
They found that maintaining a physical presence at this specific fair generates leads at a 35 to 40% lower cost per acquisition than equivalent digital campaigns. And that's campaigns targeting the exact same construction industry audience.
Wait, I need to make sure I heard that right. It is 35 to 40% cheaper to acquire a qualified lead by physically building a temporary structure in Madrid than it is to just run a highly targeted LinkedIn or Google ad campaign.
Yep.
That seems mathematically backwards.
I know it does, until you factor in the nature of the industry itself. In high-value B2B construction, we aren't talking about selling a 50 € software subscription.
Right. The stakes are way higher.
Exactly. You're dealing with structural engineers, project developers, master architects. These are people making million-euro specification decisions for skyscrapers and major infrastructure. So digital marketing can introduce a brand, sure, but it's notoriously bad at creating that visceral, immediate trust. Like, a digital rendering of a composite beam can lie.
Oh, that's a great point.
Right, but a physical beam you can actually touch. That cannot lie.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because if the return on investment is really that strong, and physical trust is the ultimate currency here, then literally every major player in the European market is going to be there. So getting a booth space is clearly not enough.
No, not at all.
You're just one tiny plot of land in a literal sea of competitors spread across, 42,000 square meters. How do you actually get anyone to look at you?
Well, this is what the industry refers to as the architecture of attention. There's data from the Center for Exhibition Industry Research, or CER, showing that 61% of exhibitors report stand design as the single biggest factor determining whether visitors stop to talk or if they just keep walking.
I actually like to think of a trade show stand as a physical 3D website landing page. Like on a website, you have maybe 3 seconds to convince someone not to click the back button, right? You're desperately trying to lower your bounce rate.
Right, exactly.
But on a trade show floor, your bounce rate consists of living, breathing human beings walking right past your multi-thousand-euro investment without even turning their heads.
And unlike a website, you can't just change a headline to fix it on the fly. You have to appeal directly to the professional psychology of the person walking down that aisle. And construction buyers, they are incredibly time poor, and more importantly, they're inherently tactile.
Right, they work with materials all day.
Precisely. So the source data provides a very specific layout formula to lower that physical bounce rate. They found that stands dedicating at least 40% of their exterior wall surface to actual physical material samples generate 3 times more qualified conversations than stands that just rely on printed marketing graphics.
Wait, 3 times more? Just by taking the glossy brochures down and putting actual tiles or like insulation panels or structural connectors on the wall.
Yep. Think about the psychology behind that, If an architect is specifying flooring for a massive commercial project, they know that a high-res photo on a wall graphic doesn't tell them anything about light refraction or surface friction or density.
Yeah, that makes total sense.
When you force them to walk up and run their hands over the material, that tactile feedback triggers an immediate psychological evaluation. Like physical weight and texture equate to structural integrity in the human brain. If you bury your products behind some slick reception desk, you're denying them that sensory evaluation.
That is fascinating. You literally cannot click on a brick to feel its texture. But I do want to push back on the logistics here for a second. Before they can get close enough to touch a sample, they have to actually realize you exist in the first place. If we're talking about a hall that holds 60,000 people, it has to be overwhelmingly crowded.
Oh, it is entirely overwhelming. IFEMA Madrid's halls are cavernous. We are talking about ceilings that soar to 12 or 14 meters high.
Wow. And that creates a massive problem for standard exhibitors, doesn't it? The guide notes that many companies show up with standard modular stands that are capped at like 2.5 meters tall. So in a 14-meter high hall, if your stand is only 2.5 meters high, you aren't an exhibitor. You're just a speed bump.
You are. You're completely dwarfed by the environment, hiding in this forest of taller structures. You're visually invisible from more than 10 meters away. So to actually win visibility from 30 or 40 meters down a crowded aisle, you have to dominate the vertical plane.
You have to go up.
Yes. The guide strongly advises pushing custom stands to 4 or 5 meters in height. This means utilizing overhead rigging, illuminated archways, tensioned fabric structures that sort of float above the crowd.
So it's a literal arms race for airspace. If an engineer is standing at the intersection of 2 aisles, exhausted, trying to decide which way to walk, a glowing 5-meter arch acts as a physical beacon. It just cuts through the visual noise.
It really does. And it also signals market dominance before the visitor has even read your company name. Height implies budget, and budget implies stability. But, capturing attention from afar and drawing them in for a tactile evaluation, that's only the beginning of the behavioral engineering here.
Right, because we have to talk about who is actually doing the evaluating. The landscape of what buyers care about has fundamentally shifted. Like, the IFEMA data shows that 84% of the visitors to Construtec hold direct purchasing authority within their organizations. These are the decision makers. But what they were looking for in 2026 is vastly different than what they were looking for a decade ago.
Absolutely. If we connect this to the bigger picture, the entire European construction market is currently being rewired by the European Green Deal. We're seeing massive regulatory shifts regarding embodied carbon reduction and circular economy materials.
Right, and for anyone listening who doesn't spend their days reading construction regulations, embodied carbon refers to the total greenhouse gas emissions generated to extract, manufacture, and transport a building material long before it ever even gets installed. It's essentially the hidden environmental cost of a product.
Exactly. And for public sector procurement officers or major commercial developers in 2026, sustainability is no longer just a corporate buzzword or some cute PR campaign. It is a mandatory legal threshold. If your structural steel or your insulation panels don't meet these new environmental criteria, you are locked out of the bidding process, period.
But what absolutely blows my mind here is how this macro-level European regulation actually dictates the micro-level design of the temporary trade show booth. Like, you cannot show up to Construtec pitching your healthy, low-carbon building materials while standing inside a booth made entirely of single-use, toxic plastics and unrecyclable foam board.
Oh, definitely not.
The cognitive dissonance would instantly destroy your credibility.
Exactly. The medium has to be the message. The stand itself must embody the sustainability visually and structurally. Adam Expo Stand's guide is very clear on this. Modern booths need to utilize FSC-certified timber, which means wood harvested from responsibly managed forests, alongside recycled aluminum structural frames and water-based non-toxic graphics.
The source is also mentioned biophilic design. Now, I've seen this term thrown around in modern office architecture, but how do you apply it to a temporary 4-day booth in a dusty exhibition hall?
Well, biophilic design is all about integrating natural elements to optimize human well-being. In a trade show context, an exhibition hall is incredibly taxing on the human nervous system. There's artificial lighting, poor acoustics, stale air.
Yeah, it's exhausting.
It is. So a smart exhibitor will use living moss walls to naturally dampen the acoustic roar of the crowd. They'll use low VOC materials so the booth doesn't smell like industrial glue, and they'll implement circadian lighting that mimics natural sunlight.
Wow, so you are essentially building an oasis. When an exhausted, eco-conscious specifier steps out of the chaotic aisle and into your stand, their heart rate literally drops. The air feels cleaner, the lighting is softer. You are basically proving your thesis on healthy building environments without saying a single word.
It's incredibly persuasive.
Yeah.
But here's where the tension really lies in modern stand design. On one hand, you have this deep biological need for tactile, raw, sustainable materials, wood, stone, living plants. But on the other hand, the construction industry is undergoing a massive digital collision.
Oh, here's where it gets really interesting. The guide dives heavily into the integration of digital technology right alongside those raw materials. We're talking about BIM integration, IoT sensors, AI-assisted design platforms, and for those who might not know, BIM stands for Building Information Modeling.
Right.
It isn't just a 3D drawing. It's a hyper-detailed digital twin of a building that tells an architect the exact thermal resistance or structural load of every single component.
Exactly. And combining the physical material with that digital intelligence creates the most important behavioral metric on the entire trade show floor, which is dwell time.
Dwell time. Literally just the amount of time someone hangs out in your booth before wandering off.
Yes. And Exhibitor Magazine tracked this metric across different booth styles. The numbers are striking. An average static display stand where products just sit on a shelf keeps a visitor for an average of 3.1 minutes.
That is not very long.
No, it's not. But stands that feature live, interactive digital demonstrations say, allowing an engineer to hold a physical recycled composite brick while watching an AI simulation of how that brick performs under seismic stress in a BIM environment, they see their visitor dwell time jump to an average of 7.2 minutes.
Wait, 7.2 minutes, holding a major decision maker's attention for over 7 minutes in a chaotic hall of 60,000 people is an absolute eternity. I mean, in trade show time, that is a lifetime.
It really is. It's the critical threshold where a passing glance transitions into a genuine business evaluation. You've satisfied their tactile need to feel the product, and you've satisfied their intellectual need to see how the data integrates into their workflow.
Okay, let's pause and look at the trap that a lot of companies fall into right here. You've captured their attention with a 5-meter-high illuminated beacon. You've pulled them in with tactile material samples. Your living moss wall has lowered their blood pressure. You've kept them engaged for 7 minutes with a brilliant AI demonstration. They love the product. But how do you actually turn that interaction into a tangible business asset? Because having a great chat doesn't pay the bills if you lose their contact information.
This brings us to the hidden logistics of lead conversion. And to understand the solution, we have to acknowledge the fatal flaw of traditional networking.
You mean the dreaded fishbowl of business cards? I have to be honest, I have a visceral reaction to this. I once found a crumpled business card in the pocket of a blazer I hadn't worn in like 3 years. I had absolutely no idea who the person was, what they sold, or why I even had their card. The context was just gone.
Yep, happens all the time.
And it shocks me how many multi-million-euro companies still rely on a salesperson shoving a paper rectangle into their pocket as a lead capture strategy.
The data proves your intuition completely. Relying on manual business card collection or hastily scribbled notes results in an average data entry error rate of 22%.
22%?
Yeah, somebody misreads a 0 as an O or misspells an email address, and the lead is just dead. Furthermore, 15% of those physical leads are lost entirely before they ever get manually entered into a CRM system back at the office.
That is agonizing. Just imagine spending 50,000 euros on a booth, flying your entire executive team to Madrid, securing a brilliant conversation with a lead developer, and then losing 15% of your entire potential pipeline because someone dropped a stack of cards in the hotel lobby. It's an entirely unforced error.
Which is exactly why Adam Expo Stand emphasizes that lead capture cannot be an afterthought. It has to be architecturally integrated into the stand before the first wall is even built.
Look right in.
Exactly. The most successful exhibitors use NFC-enabled product displays. where a visitor simply taps their smartphone against a tile to instantly download the spec sheet and simultaneously transmit their digital contact card. They use QR code-linked brochures, seamlessly woven into the wall graphics, and iPad registration hubs built directly into the custom furniture.
So the data capture is pre-programmed. It basically becomes as structural as the lighting rig. But capturing a digital profile is just the data side. I have to push back on the human side of the conversion here. Where are these high-level technical discussions actually taking place? If the hall is as loud and chaotic as we've established, how is anyone supposed to have a serious 20-minute engineering discussion about load-bearing limits while standing in a busy aisle with thousands of people bumping into them? That sounds miserable.
It is miserable, and it heavily degrades the quality of the sales pitch. Cognitive load is a real issue here. Serious buyers at construction fairs require intense focus, so a well-designed custom stand must incorporate spatial mechanics to solve this, specifically semi-private meeting areas.
The sources mentioned that this doesn't necessarily mean building a fully enclosed boardroom, right? Like even just designing a space with a pair of high stools and a narrow table placed behind a branded partition can change the entire dynamic.
Right. The goal is visual and acoustic shielding. When you physically block out the visual distraction of the crowd moving past the aisle, you lower the cognitive load on the buyer. They don't have to shout, they don't have to watch their back, and the conversation deepens immediately. It shifts from a casual, polite chat into a qualified, pipeline-generating discussion.
So what does this all mean for the team actually managing the event? It means that showing up on November 10th and hoping the right people naturally wander into your brilliantly designed booth is a recipe for failure. Hope is a terrible marketing strategy.
It truly is. The exhibitors who dominate Construtec shift from a reactive posture to a highly proactive one. The guide actually shares a very aggressive timeline for this. They advise clients to begin their LinkedIn outreach directly to Construtec registered visitors 4 to 6 weeks prior to the event.
4 to 6 weeks out, so you're basically hacking their calendar before they've even booked their flight to Madrid.
The goal is to offer pre-scheduled 20-minute technical meetings in those semi-private booth areas we talked about. This specific strategy consistently fills 60 to 70% of a stand team's capacity before the fair doors even open.
Wow, that changes the entire psychological state of the sales team. You completely remove the anxiety of staring out at an empty booth on day one. You're walking into the hall with a guaranteed baseline of high-value interactions. But speaking of timelines, there is another logistical hack mentioned in the sources regarding the physical floor space itself.
Yes, IFEMA allocates its preferred positions on a first-come, first-served basis. So the guide strongly recommends booking your raw floor space before July of 2026.
And the reward for booking early isn't just getting it off your to-do list, right? Securing a corner booth or an end-of-aisle position naturally boosts your visitor traffic by 28% compared to being stuck in a mid-aisle location. You are essentially buying a 28% increase in organic foot traffic just by having your paperwork organized in the summer.
It's a pure logistical advantage. Furthermore, when you brief your stand contractor by August, you avoid premium rush build fees and ensure the contractor actually has the 8 to 12 weeks necessary to engineer and test a custom build before shipping it.
Okay, so we've talked about 5-meter illuminated arches, living moss walls, NFC-enabled lead capture, and semi-private meeting hubs. We have to talk about the elephant in the room for anyone listening who actually manages a corporate marketing budget. What does it cost to execute this level of premium engineering at Construtec?
Well, the investment breakdown varies significantly based on your physical footprint. For a modular exhibition stand, which is typically between 9 and 18 square meters, the costs generally run between 6,000 and 15,000 euros. That includes the design, the production of the materials, transport to Madrid, and the installation labor.
And the beauty of the modular system is its reusability. The sources note that these recycled aluminum frames and tension fabric graphics can be reconfigured and deployed 8 to 12 times. So if your company is doing a multi-fair tour hitting trade shows across Spain, France, and Germany, your cost per fair plummets after that initial investment.
True. But if a company is launching a major new product line or they want to project absolute market dominance with a massive 20 to 50 square meter island stand, they move into custom-built territory. Those investments range heavily from 18,000 to 60,000 euros or more, depending on the complexity of the architecture and the technology integrated.
Yeah, that scales up fast.
It does. And we must remember, the raw floor space rental paid directly to IFEMA is a separate additional cost, which is usually around 180 to 280 euros per square meter.
That is a very serious line item. Spending upwards of 60 or 70,000 euros for 4 days of activity is exactly what causes marketing directors to panic. But we have to loop all the way back to that mind-blowing stat from the very beginning of our deep dive, the 35 to 40% lower cost per acquisition compared to digital channels. Atom Expo stands tracking data across over 500 European projects shows that these custom stand investments typically deliver a full return on investment within 12 to 24 months of consistent use.
It really requires a fundamental shift in perspective. You aren't buying a temporary structure that gets thrown in the trash.
Yeah.
You're investing in a highly optimized face-to-face conversion engine that accelerates human trust in a way that digital algorithms simply cannot replicate.
Which brings us to the ultimate takeaway for you listening today. Dominating a massive 60,000-person event like Construtec IFEMA Madrid 2026 isn't about having the flashiest logo, and it certainly isn't about handing out the most branded plastic pens. It is about the precise engineering of human behavior. It is about combining the raw, tactile engagement of physical materials with seamless, error-free digital efficiency, all housed within a highly competitive 5-meter-high physical arena designed to lower cognitive load.
This raises an important question for anyone evaluating their strategic marketing mix. We spend vast amounts of time and budget optimizing our digital user experiences, A/B testing button colors, analyzing web traffic. But how much thought do we really give to the physical user experience?
That's a great point.
Right. The materials being showcased at Construtec are deeply physical: stone, glass, steel. But the overarching strategy to get human beings to stop, touch, and purchase them is intensely psychological.
It's basically behavioral science dressed up as temporary architecture, which leaves me with a final thought for you to mull over. We've seen how these physical trade show stands are evolving into hyper-efficient hybrid spaces. They are blending live AI software simulations with raw, tactile, circular economy materials. If this evolution continues, will the B2B marketplace of the future feel less like a loud traditional trade floor and more like a carefully curated, interactive sensory museum? A place where you don't just walk past booths to collect brochures, but you step inside immersive physical narratives that engage all 5 senses.
It's a fascinating future to think about.
It completely challenges how we measure the value of physical space in an increasingly virtual world. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive, and for you listening, as always, keep questioning the architecture of the world around you.